Hi there, my name's Arvind Anand, and I'm going to do the project review for Team C minus minus. So this is our app, and I shall go through all its functionalities. Um, to start off, we have a user stories and blockers button. Our user stories button obviously creates user stories. We can select our value for our business point, and you see here the user story was added. Our blocker, we can create new blockers when we wish. And the blocker is added. Let me just create another blocker. Excellent. And if you look here, you have the user story selection UI and blocker selection UI. So user story selection UI, you can select the user stories to add to your sprint backlog, but this is only accessible from the um, product administrator or Scrum Master. So if we change our role to Scrum Master using our switch role button, our role is now switched to Scrum Master. We can go to the user story selection UI and our button to add to the sprint backlog is there. So let's just check the user story we created. And let me add a previously created user story. Now we can do the same for blocker selection. So I can add blocker 2. Now going to the sprint backlog, blocker 2, our user story which we created, and our predefined user story is there. If we wanted to, we can always go back to our user story and clear our sprint backlog. And by doing this, if we go back to our sprint backlog, our user stories have been deleted. So let me just add a few user stories. And let me go back and add one more blocker. All right. So our sprint backlog is now populated with 2 user stories and 2 blockers. Now, as a Scrum administrator, I can edit the blocker probability. So I'm going to say this blocker has a 50 to 75% chance of occurrence. And if it occurs, we have a 75 to 100% chance of solving it with using solution 2. And for our next probability, I should say this has a 0 to 25% chance of occurring. And if it occurs, we are basically having maybe 25 to 50% chance of completing. And that's also in solution 3. Now, once that's done, I can come back and look at my sprint backlog. I can see the blocker probabilities. Now, if you noticed, we selected a range and the computer has calculated a value between those ranges and it's added its own fudge factor. So now we shall create a simulation. Creating a simulation opens the screen where you have to select a name. I shall call it simulation demo. I'm going to make this a 2 sprint cycle and a duration of, let's say, 21 days. Finish, right? So now I can go and look at my simulation at modify simulation. If you select the simulation, we have our simulation demo, which has our two sprint and duration is 21 days. I think I'll increase the number of sprints to 5. And now it's modified. So if I was to again check, you can see it's 5. Now I want to try simulating this simulation. So I'm going to click Start Simulation. And we have made certain checks in the program to make sure that the user doesn't enter somewhere where they shouldn't. So if I try to join a simulation without starting it, you'll get a pop-up saying, please start a simulation before joining. So I'm going to start a simulation. Let's start the simulation which we just created. Simulation started and join simulation. In the simulation, let's just select our role and go to Scrum Master. So what happens here is that the simulation takes both probabilities and it calculates whether each individual blocker is occurring or not. And what the simulation has now calculated is that the sprint is running. Now, this sprint is running would change every time we start a new simulation. So to demo this, I shall show another simulation which we've already created called Simulation Final for Real. Our simulation started. I'm going to join this simulation. Now, if you look at this simulation, it's a very simple simulation where there's one user story and one blocker. And the reason we chose this simulation is because the blocker probability is 54%. So, and the solution probability is 0. So there is about half 50-50 chance that the simulation sprint is blocked. And it is blocked in this instance. And now if I stop the simulation and I start it again, let's see if we get lucky this time and we have the simulation to be running, sprint to be running. Oh, we did get lucky. So sprint is running. So every time we start a simulation, this calculation happens in the back end. And we can basically then simulate whether or not a certain sprint would occur or not. Then I believe we have update user status, which we can basically define our user story. Sorry, we can basically look up our user stories and then we can change it from new, in progress, ready to test, or complete. And here you can see that we have updated our user stories. Additionally, we have also included a spike functionality. The spike functionality will not be available for the Scrum Master. It will be available for developers and product owners. So if I was to switch my role to a developer and I open up Spike backlogs, sprint backlog, I can see a create a spike button. And if you see here, create a spike has an empty screen. Now, why is this? Because our spike only allows us to spike when we do not have a solution or there's some incomplete detail. So for that, I am going to make our solution to be empty here. First, say create a spike. And if you see here, we have the spike. We have the ability to enter our details in the spike. And with that, we have also implemented spike functionality. And with that, I think we've demoed mostly what we have written in our app. Thank you all for joining, and thank you, team, for tuning in.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.